Your parents probably tell stories about a time that feels like a different planet, a time when one good job could actually build a life. It could get you a house, support a family, and lock in a stable future. That was the American dream. So, why does that dream feel like a work of fiction today? It comes down to one number: absolute income mobility. That's the odds a child will earn more than their parents. For Americans born in the 1940s, that number was over 90%. If you were born in the 1980s, it's a 50-50 shot, a coin flip. This isn't about feelings, it's the cold, hard math of a broken promise. The rules of the game have been completely rewritten. For younger generations, the classic milestones of success aren't just delayed anymore. They're locked behind economic walls that simply didn't exist for your parents. Let's start with the biggest one: a home. Owning a house used to be a standard part of middle-class life. Now it's a luxury. The typical first-time homebuyer is now 38 years old. Decades ago, it was 29. The reason is brutally simple. Home prices have exploded while wages have stagnated. To afford a median-priced home today, the typical household would need to spend nearly 45% of their income, which completely shatters the long-held 30% rule for financial stability. In fact, an estimated 75% of all U.S. households can't afford a median-priced new home, making the market not just tough, but exclusionary. Then there's the debt anchor. For millions, the cover charge for a shot at a decent career is a mountain of student loans, a burden previous generations mostly got to sidestep. Following the end of pandemic-era relief, the situation has gotten worse. As of April 2025, data from TransUnion shows that over 30% of borrowers with a payment due were 90 days or more behind, the highest rate ever recorded. This isn't just a budget problem, it's a systemic anchor dragging down the economy, preventing people from saving, investing, or taking the kinds of financial risks that lead to a better life. It's the price you pay before you even get a chance to start earning. And that good job, the one that was supposed to fix everything, while headlines boast about low unemployment, the ground truth is different. Between 2020 and 2024, cumulative inflation hit about 21%, while wages only grew by around 17%, meaning your paycheck buys less than it used to. The promise was that if you worked hard, you'd get ahead. Now, working hard just means you might not fall further behind. So, how did we end up here? This wasn't some fluke. It was the result of quiet, systemic changes over decades that rewired the entire American economy. The social safety nets and contracts that protected your parents and grandparents were slowly dismantled. Labor unions got weaker, and with them, the power to make sure wages kept up with all the wealth that was being created. Globalization shipped jobs overseas, while automation, now supercharged by AI, is hollowing out the very entry-level white-collar jobs that used to be a launchpad. But maybe the biggest shift was how we think about homing. A home stopped just being a place to live and morphed into a financial asset to be traded like a stock. This change fueled speculative bubbles and turned our cities into playgrounds for investors, pricing out the very people who make those cities run. When your home is just a number on someone else's spreadsheet, your stability becomes their commodity. The result is a wealth gap that's hard to even comprehend. The wealthiest 10% of Americans now own around 90% of all U.S. stocks. This isn't just inequality, it's a structural barrier that makes the idea of pulling yourself up by your bootstraps feel like a cruel joke. If any of this sounds painfully familiar, if you feel like you're playing a game you were set up to lose, share your story in the comments. How has this new reality changed what success even means to you? It's easy to look at these numbers and feel hopeless, but here's the most important thing to get. You are not failing. Your anxiety is justified. Your frustration is valid. The feeling that the deck is stacked against you isn't a personal flaw. It's a rational response to the data. Younger generations are now being forced to redefine the American dream. They're shifting away from owning things and towards goals like personal fulfillment and work-life balance, not always by choice, but because they have to. They still believe in the dream of a better life, but more than half know it will be incredibly difficult to achieve for themselves. The truth is, the American dream didn't just fade away. It was restructured, redesigned, and for an entire generation stuck behind a paywall they were never given the money to afford. The story here isn't that your generation is failing the dream, it's that the dream, in its 20th century form, has failed your generation.